Long live your turtle here, and I'm really excited. Why? Because I'm going to install this custom DIY aquarium background for my 75-gallon turtle tank that you see behind me. Now this is made of glass tile, some plastic PVC trim that you use in your home, and an acrylic sheet all glued together with silicone. Let's get this in the tank, shall we? If you like how it looks, stick around. At the end of the video, I'll show you exactly how I made this background. Alright, so it's going to be a little tricky because, as you can see, this background is made up of two pieces and they get installed on the inside back glass panel of the tank, which means this tank needs to be completely drained so I can use silicone to adhere this background to that glass panel. It takes about 24 hours to fully cure silicone. So what we got to do is get the fish out of here. We got 4 convict cichlids and a sucker fish. They're going to get a bucket and they're going to get an aerator and a heater, and they're going to go 24 hours in that wonderful setting. Now I have crackers in here. Crackers can go right with Moses down in the turtle tub in my basement because they get along really well. However, Harold in the back there is sleeping and Moses really hates Harold, so Harold gets a plastic bin. Lucky Harold. So let's get everyone out of the tank, let's drain this tank, let's glue the background in, and let's see what it all looks like. Stick around if you want to see exactly how I built this in the end. Let's get to it. And that's it. The 75-gallon aquarium DIY background is fully installed. The water is filled back up. The turtle's back in there. All the convict cichlids are back in there, hiding in their respective vases or driftwood. And it looks really clean, and I think it came out really well. What I loved about this was it was relatively simple. It was only those 3 parts I talked about. It's those glass tiles, it's that plastic PVC trim, and an acrylic sheet, all from the hardware store. And it's all glued together with silicone, and then it's glued to the back glass of the tank with silicone. Really simple to do. Only took 1 extra tool I didn't have in my utility belt, and it was really cheap, and I'll probably use it in the future, so not the biggest loss. Now why I really like this DIY background is it was simple. Like I said, you could actually choose tons of different tiles in the back there, depending on what kind of style you're looking for. I kind of wanted to match this overall Grecian theme, so that's what I chose in the back for my design. However, you could do all sorts of tiles. So why I really like this design is it has a really low profile, as you can see. It just has that glass tile thickness, that PVC thickness, and that tiny acrylic sheet thickness. And that's really important because I have a 75-gallon aquarium with a 6.5-inch red ear slider. That's Harold over there. And she needs the most space that she can get. So having a background that's going inside of your tank, that's going to take some space. But with this really low profile components with that glass tile and that PVC, I'm not taking much space at all, so Harold's not even gonna notice. And yeah, I could get those paper ones like I had on there before that kind of have this fake scene that really doesn't look realistic, and it's kind of annoying to install, and it just sits on the back of your glass. I don't like how they look, and I wanted to do something that kind of integrated in with everything, and I think this came out really well. If you like what you see here, stick around because I'm going to do a DIY on every step I took to make this background, and you can see if it's something that you want to do for your tank, or maybe you'll get some great ideas from the method that I used to build this. If you like this video and you want to build things for your turtle tank that aren't on the store shelves, hit that subscribe button because I have lots of DIY projects, and I plan to do a lot more DIY projects for my turtle tanks and my turtle tub. Now, if you like the video, hit that like button. If you have comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section of this video. Otherwise, I hope you stuck around to see exactly how I built this. Let's get to the DIY section of this video. Let's see how this thing was built so you can have something like this in your tank. All right, so what you see in front of you is most of what you're gonna need for this project. What we're gonna start with is 2 of these acrylic sheets by Optics. And then I'm gonna have 4 of these Mosaic tiles mounted on a mesh. They come in this 12 by 12 little pack here. You're gonna need 4 of those. I'm gonna use a couple C-clamps, especially for breaking our acrylic sheets. I'm gonna use a utility knife, an acrylic gouger, and some tile nippers. We have some tape there just to hold things together. And I'm gonna use a GE all-purpose silicone to glue everything together. We're also gonna use this to glue the back of the tank. I'm gonna use a caulking gun to get that silicone out of that tube. And I'm gonna have a tape measure, and of course, don't forget your hydration, fill up your water bottle. And then we're gonna use this PVC plastic trim, and I'll leave all of the links to this stuff in the description of the video. All right, so clear off that workbench. The first thing we're gonna do is get our acrylic sheets to be the correct size to fit on the inside panel of your tank. So I've shown how to break acrylic in the past, but what you do is basically clamp it and gouge back and forth along the line you wanna break on. Do this a lot and make sure it's a good gouge because that will guarantee a clean break. So you can see here I flipped it around just to make it easier for me to break it off. And there you go. This basically made it so it was the right length to fit in the tank. From the height perspective, it was already good to go, so it only took 1 snap here, which is awesome. Now, what you want to do, of course, is lay out everything so that you see how it's going to fit before you start modifying anything. So the next thing we're going to work on is cutting that white plastic trim into 4 different pieces. You're going to cut 2 of the pieces the length of one of your acrylic sheets and 2 other pieces the length of your other acrylic sheet because they're not the same length anymore after you broke one of them. So just keep that in mind that they're not all going to be the exact same length. I didn't show this in the tools before, but it's for my own convenience. You don't need it, but I'm using this little plastic fixture just to make sure I get straight cuts without needing a vise or anything fancy like that. All right, with your trim pieces cut, put them on the top and bottom of your acrylic sheets, line them up where they need to be, and we're now going to focus on our Mosaic tiles. So as you can see while I'm unpacking this, Mosaic tiles actually come on this mesh and they're all connected. So when you first saw this, you might have been like, holy crap, did he have to put all these tiles together one by one and make it look like that? No, they come on this mesh like I'm showing here, and you can just glue the mesh and all the tiles go along with it. So it's really only 4 major glues. And then you'll see that there's some overlap on the right and left here, and then also on the left, just to complicate things a little bit, there's little gaps that you're going to have to fill in with cut pieces of glass that we're going to cut from those corners. And then I'm showing just in the middle, you're going to have an overlap, but they're designed to look like they're overlapping correctly, so the middle will look good without any modifications. And of course, hydrate. All right, we're going to take those tile nippers like I showed you. They're basically these 2 little wheels, and they make it really easy to cut these tile pieces. They're glass, so they're pretty thin, so using this tool is going to work out perfectly. Don't forget eye protection because the glass goes flying when you use this tool, so just be safe. Now, what you're going to do is basically just do a couple test runs and don't do big pieces at first, but all you're going to do is put the tile nippers basically in the center of the tile and just pull the handles and it'll break off. It's not always the cleanest break, and I never really got the hang of it, but it was good enough for making this look like it was trimmed at a straight line. Now, on the other side, we're going to do the same thing, but remember, you're going to have to fill in that little gap where the acrylic shows through because you don't fully complete that wall. So while you cut these side pieces on the left side, just make sure you're cutting them big enough that you can fit them in those gaps. Always cut them bigger, and you don't want to cut them too small because you can't just keep stacking them. That won't look very good, but if you cut them big enough, they'll fit right in there really nicely. Cut them right at the edge and they should fit with no problem. Like I said, I picked up those little scrap pieces. There they are. Now figure out which ones are best. They're a little bit long here, as you can see, so all you're going to have to do is trim them. Trimming them is better, obviously, than trying to gain back any material like I just said. And you're going to do this for all 5 of those little empty spots. All right, so the hard part's done. Good job. What we're going to do now is glue it all together. we're going to use this GE all-purpose silicone. This will be aquarium safe once it's cured. I'm going to put it in this caulking gun. I actually already have one loaded up in there. I'm going to finish that one off for this project. But first things to do is take your protective film off that acrylic. You don't want to glue on that because that would not be a great thing to glue to. You want your pure acrylic sheet. So the first thing I did was kind of cleaned off that trim piece, and I'm going to glue the bottom trim. And I just do a bead on the top and bottom and a couple big ones in the middle. You don't need to just cover this, but you want to get a good healthy amount on there because it's not super glue, it's not cement, it is not the absolute strongest glue, but as long as you get enough on there, it's going to do what we need it to do. So I do the top trim as well, and then we're going to do our tiles. I'm going to start with the right side, that's the one we trimmed. So as you're going across here, just make sure you're doing the right ones in the right order because you need them to line up as you designed originally. So you can see here, just press it all down. I just covered basically that entire mesh and all the little tile pieces sticking out with the silicone. Once it's in the tank, you really can't repair it without taking out, so don't skimp here. Just cover that thing with silicone and make sure it's going to adhere well. Push everything down, you're done with the right side. Well done. Make sure everything's still square after pushing it around. Again, silicone takes a little while to dry and will be flexible. Now let's move over to the left side. We're going to do the same thing. Take off that protective film. You don't want to glue on that. We're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to work on that bottom left trim piece, and then we're going to do our top trim piece. Now just give us a nice frame to now start working on our mosaic tiles with that mesh. Now for this tile set, it's very important that you only glue the edge tiles, as you can see that I did, for where it's going to glue to your left panel. You don't want to glue the little tile pieces that are going to be on your right panel because then you'll make it all one cohesive piece. You don't want to do that, so just be careful. Now you can see I'm finishing up with those little tiny pieces at the end. Don't forget about those. Just take a little bit of silicone each, and you're all done. Let it dry, 24 hours minimum. I suggest doing 48 and even soaking it in a bathtub before you put it in the tank. Now, it's tank time, so I showed you this earlier in the video, but what you're going to do is you're going to cover the back with silicone. I focused on putting a lot of silicone on the top and bottom and edges, and especially the edge that will be closest to the side of the tank. And I'll just hold it in better as we install it here. Each panel weighs about 7 to 8 pounds, so you're going to need some fixturing to hold it in place. I did a little bit of random pieces of wood here and there just so it stayed where it needed to, because again, that silicone doesn't dry super fast, so it will be flexible and move around on you as you do this. Now when you have that left one in, it's time to do the right side. Cover that with silicone again, and I did those little pieces sticking out because once it's in there, it's going to be relatively permanent. I will be able to pull it off even with those little glued tile pieces onto our left side, making it one unit. But again here, I just lined everything up. With that left one in there, you can basically line it up with the right one and make them square so you pretty much have no seams. That's the goal here. And once you have it where you want it, wait another 24 to 48 hours and then fill her back up and put whatever you had in there back in to live with their new awesome background. Here it is again. They're my convict cichlids, having a joyous time in their new cool 3D background tank. There's Harold, not sure about it yet. And that's it. Project's complete. Thanks for following along, everyone. Like, subscribe, comment. See ya!